War took her legs, but it couldn't take her spirit. When a human offers the impossible, a second chance at mobility, an alien commander discovers that recovery can be as unpredictable, hilarious, and extraordinary as the galaxy itself. Lyra Kael stared at the ceiling panels of the medical bay, the soft hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the floor beneath her. She had always liked the feeling of being in command, her blue skin glinting faintly under the sterile lights, her long blonde hair drifting in zero gravity like golden threads, her long ears twitching in rhythm with every subtle vibration. But today, her body felt alien even to her. Her legs, once pillars of strength that had carried her across countless battlefields, were gone, replaced by sleek synthetic stubs that tingled with cold indifference. She flexed them experimentally, and the tiniest twitch of sensation made her scowl. The irony was not lost on her. Commander Lyra Kael, the unflinching, feared tactician, reduced to a punchline in her own mind. The AI's voice piped up, as if sensing her mood. Warning, 0% leg capacity detected. Suggest avoiding any sudden movements. It added cheerfully, may I suggest crawling? It is recommended for maximum comedic effect. Lyra's long ears twitched, half in irritation, half in reluctant amusement. She could almost hear her old crew laughing at the suggestion, imagining their commander flailing across the floor like a malfunctioning android. Yes, thank you, she muttered. I'll consider it for my retirement performance. Then came Dr. Elias Venn, a human whose reputation for eccentric brilliance was only matched by his complete lack of social grace. His boots clanged as he entered, one hand carrying a holographic pad and the other balancing a steaming mug. He had a habit of offering hot drinks in the middle of surgery, apparently believing caffeine could repair shattered bones. "Ah, Commander Kael," he said with mock solemnity. "You look remarkably blue today, glowing even. I've always wanted to study bioluminescence up close." Lyra's ears twitched again. "Remarkably blue," she repeated dryly. "Thanks for the poetry." Venn leaned over, tapping at the pad. "I've devised a multi-phase recovery protocol. Step 1, introduce your legs back to you. Step 2, teach you to walk without kicking anything expensive. Step 3, optional moonwalk. Step 4, conquer the galaxy or at least not faceplint during a diplomatic event." Lyra's lips twitched, almost smiling. She had faced orbital bombardments, plasma storms, and fleets of enemy warships. Yet here she was, debating whether to laugh at a human's terrible humor or glare at him in lethal warning. The process began with a swarm of nanobots, tiny machines that tickled as they stitched and integrated synthetic muscle fibers with her own. The sensation was alien, like walking on clouds of electricity that occasionally buzzed in the wrong places. "Is it supposed to feel like someone's using your legs as a charging station?" she asked, one eyebrow arched. Venn's grin was infectious. "Absolutely, and if you get a spark in the right place, you might sing, or fry a drone." Lyra shook her head, the corners of her mouth lifting despite herself. As hours stretched, the lab transformed into a circus of blinking lights, hovering diagnostic bots and holographic readouts. Venn narrated each step with the seriousness of a general and the absurdity of a late-night comic. "Notice how the left calf responds differently than the right. Think of it like your legs have opinions." Lyra's long ears twitched in rhythm to his commentary, the twitching becoming almost involuntary laughter. Here, in the middle of a sterile sci-fi medical bay, she discovered the first crack in the armor of her despair. Humor, it seemed, could rebuild more than bodies. It could restore hope. When Venn finally stepped back, gesturing at her new legs as if unveiling a masterpiece, Lyra flexed them, tested her balance, and wobbled once, twice. Then she nearly toppled over. "Careful!" Venn shouted, diving forward like a panicked human. She caught herself on the nearest console, glaring at him. "I am a commander," she said, voice sharp but trembling with amusement. "Not a gravity-challenged circus act." Venn shrugged, still grinning. "Minor details. You'll walk, run, and maybe even dance. But until then, consider every stumble a triumph of comedy over tragedy." Lyra's long ears flicked, and for the first time since the war, a genuine smile curved her lips. Somewhere between buzzing nanobots, human absurdity, and the faint scent of heated circuitry, she felt the smallest pulse of life returning, not just to her legs, but to her spirit. The galaxy outside could wait. For now, she was alive, she was laughing, and that was enough. Lyra's first steps on her new legs felt like negotiating with a particularly stubborn starship AI. Every movement required patience, precision, and a willingness to swear under her breath. The synthetic muscles hummed faintly, reacting to neural commands with the occasional misfire, and every time she took a step, she felt a curious mix of alien strength and human clumsiness. Doctor. Elias Venn hovered nearby, clipboard in hand, muttering to himself about calibration curves and gait ratios, though she suspected half of what he said was just to hear his own voice. "Try not to launch yourself into orbit this time," he quipped, the corners of his mouth twitching in anticipation of her inevitable stumble. Lyra rolled her eyes, her long ears flicking irritably, but the twitch of amusement she couldn't suppress betrayed her. Her first cautious shuffle across the lab was a mixture of elegance and chaos, legs whirring with soft mechanical clicks, balancing on floors that seemed more slippery than they had any right to be. The nanobots buzzed beneath her skin like a chorus of tiny, over-enthusiastic cheerleaders. As she walked, her gaze drifted out the panoramic viewport, where the stars stretched into long streaks because of the ship's low-speed drift through hyperspace. The galaxy looked indifferent to her struggles, a vast sea of light and dark where no one cared whether she could walk yet. But somehow, being able to move again, even awkwardly, made her feel less like a relic of war and more like a creature of possibility. "Left foot forward, right foot, don't kick the support drones," Venn said, waving his arms like a human conductor guiding an orchestra of chaos. One tiny maintenance bot beeped indignantly as Lyra's toe nudged it sideways. "Apologies," she muttered, though her ears twitched as she tried not to smile. Venn chuckled. "See, already making friends. You're a natural ambassador of the diplomacy method." She stumbled again, catching herself on the edge of a holographic interface, sending a cascade of 3D star maps wobbling through the air. "Honestly, could you at least pretend to be impressed by my grace?" she asked, flicking her long ears. Venn adjusted his glasses, peering at her like a scientist observing a newly awakened species. "Lyra Kael," he said solemnly, "your elegance is spectacularly unconventional. In fact, if elegance were an art form, you'd be a performance piece titled Chaos in Motion." Hours stretched on with a mixture of frustration, discovery, and occasional laughter. Lyra found herself learning the subtle cues of her synthetic limbs, the way the joints responded to her thoughts, the hum of the nano-muscles tightening just before a step, the odd tick of her left knee that sometimes made her hop unexpectedly. Each new sensation was accompanied by Venn's commentary. "Ah, that twitch is called enthusiasm. We encourage it here." By the time the ship's artificial suns dipped below the horizon of a distant gas giant, Lyra was moving steadily, though she sometimes wobbled like a newborn calf. Venn had finally retired to a corner, sipping from his mug, muttering about recalibrating the gravity simulators. She flexed her legs experimentally, watching the stars blur behind her and realizing that despite all the metal and tech inside her body, she felt alive. Fully alive. Her laughter, unexpected and bubbling, filled the lab like a melody. Even the AI's voice softened. "Warning, Commander's humor levels approaching dangerous thresholds. Recommend containment only if laughter becomes contagious." Lyra straightened, long ears twitching, and tilted her head toward Venn. "You're insufferable," she said, but the corner of her mouth betrayed a grin. He raised an eyebrow, mock offended, and said, "I prefer charmingly maddening." The first steps had been tentative, awkward, and loud, but they were hers. Every misstep was a tiny victory, every wobble a proof that she had not been broken beyond repair. Outside, the stars shimmered, indifferent yet beautiful, and inside, laughter mixed with the low hum of machines, a new rhythm for a galaxy that had almost stolen everything from her. The next morning, Lyra awoke to a chorus of blinking lights and soft, almost apologetic beeps from the ship's systems. Her new legs stretched beneath her, the synthetic fibers still humming faintly, a constant reminder that she was more machine than she had been the day before. The sensation was disorienting yet thrilling. Each step she took on the medical bay's polished floors felt like testing gravity itself, as if the universe had become a puzzle to solve one careful shuffle at a time. Doctor. Venn hovered nearby, notepad in hand, eyes gleaming with the excitement of a human who had discovered fire. Or perhaps, in this case, a blue-skinned alien who could walk again. "Good morning, Commander," he said cheerfully, nearly tipping over a hovering diagnostic drone as he gestured. "Today, we attempt advanced maneuvers. Think of it as dance class meets survival training." Lyra's long ears flicked with skepticism. "Advanced maneuvers, you say? Will I also be juggling photon grenades while pirouetting?" she asked dryly. Venn laughed, a sound like metal chimes in the sterile room. "Only if you insist. Though I recommend starting with walking sideways, without toppling consoles." She swung her legs over the side of the bed, flexing them experimentally. The nanomuscles responded with a quiet whirring, a sound almost musical, though slightly off-key. Her first step was cautious, her weight shifting in a rhythm she hadn't known she'd missed so desperately. The hum of the ship, the flicker of holographic star charts, and the low vibration from the engines became a kind of orchestra, each element dictating the tempo of her movements. She paused mid-step, tilted her head, and glared at Venn. "This is your idea of a workout?" she asked. He grinned. "Absolutely. In fact, I call it the Commander Kael calibration protocol. Step 1, don't fall. Step 2, don't fall. Step 3, optional interpretive dance." Lyra's ears twitched in reluctant amusement. There was something maddeningly human about his persistence, his insistence on humor even when she felt fragile and raw. Yet it helped. Somehow, it made the process less daunting, less a test of survival, and more a collaboration between alien resolve and human absurdity. By mid-morning, she was navigating a course Venn had rigged across the lab. Floating platforms, low-gravity zones, and a scattering of maintenance drones programmed to beep or wobble when bumped. Each collision elicited a groan from Lyra and an enthusiastic clap from Venn. "Excellent. Your left leg has personality. It's expressing itself quite loudly," he said. She muttered something under her breath that could have been an insult in any language, yet she couldn't hide the twitch of a smile. The real breakthrough came when she attempted to sprint. Well, the closest approximation her newly rebuilt legs could manage without threatening the integrity of the lab's equipment. She bolted, legs humming and nanobots syncing with every thought, and for the first time in months, she felt unstoppable. A hovering drone zoomed past and she swerved, narrowly avoiding collision, and found herself laughing at the absurdity of it all. Venn leapt to the side, waving his arms like a coach on a sideline, shouting, "Graceful, very graceful." Lyra flicked him a look, but the laugh that escaped her throat was genuine. Hours blurred as she tested the limits of her mobility, twisting, hopping, and even attempting a small spin that nearly sent her tumbling into a diagnostic console. Venn caught her, steadying her with a human clumsiness that was somehow reassuring. "You'll thank me when you can moonwalk past a line of enemy troops," he said, deadpan. Lyra's ears twitched, a reluctant smirk tugging at her lips. "I will hold that prophecy close," she said, "right after I survive your next attempt at humor." By evening, she sat on the edge of the observation deck, legs dangling over the edge, watching stars stretch like molten threads through the void. Her mind, once weighed with despair and the memory of the battlefield, felt lighter. Humor, human persistence, and the strange rhythm of her new limbs had stitched together more than her body. They had begun to stitch together her spirit. The galaxy outside remained chaotic, unpredictable, and vast. But inside, she had regained a foothold. A balance not just of limbs but of hope, laughter, and the possibility that survival could feel almost fun. Lyra's legs had settled into a rhythm by the time she emerged from the medical bay, though each step still carried a hint of unpredictability, like a starship navigating an asteroid field at sublight speeds. The corridor ahead shimmered with the soft luminescence of emergency lights and the occasional holographic display, casting long reflections across the polished alloy floor. She moved deliberately, testing her balance with subtle shifts of weight, flexing synthetic muscles as if coaxing them into conversation. Venn walked beside her, arms folded, looking far too serious for a man who had just spent the morning cracking jokes about left-leg enthusiasm and nanobot tickle hazards. "So, Commander," he said, his tone unusually formal, "how does it feel to have legs that don't exist yet technically exist?" Lyra raised an eyebrow, her long ears flicking like antennae. "It feels like walking through molasses while riding a comet, and you, apparently, feel the need to narrate every minor miracle." Venn's grin stretched. "Ah, but narration is an art form. One day, historians will write sonnets about this very walk." She snorted, a sound like low wind through hollow metal, and tried to ignore the way the corridor subtly tilted under the ship's artificial gravity adjustments. They arrived at the training bay, a vast space filled with low-gravity simulators, floating platforms, and holographic enemies designed to test agility and combat coordination. Lyra's blue skin glowed faintly under the lights, her blonde hair pulled into a loose braid to keep it from floating into her face. Her ears twitched in anticipation, the faintest trace of the old thrill returning. Even crippled and rebuilt, she was still a warrior. The holograms flickered, weapons drawn, in formations meant to intimidate. She flexed her legs experimentally, feeling the subtle hum of nanomuscles synchronizing with her intent. "All right," Venn said, stepping aside with a dramatic flourish. "Your first real test. Dodge, weave, and remain upright while evading theoretical laser fire. Bonus points if you look fabulous doing it." Lyra's lips quirked in a half-smile. "Fabulous, you say? I'll try to comply, but no promises about avoiding humiliation." The exercise began with a low hum, and holographic projectiles zipped toward her. Each step was precise, calculated, yet tinged with that human chaos Venn seemed to enjoy observing. She ducked, sidestepped, and twisted, occasionally colliding with floating platforms and sending a display of blinking lights spinning across the room. Each collision drew a mock gasp from Venn. "Impressive, you've added flair to physics," he shouted. Her ears twitched in a mixture of irritation and amusement. "Flair, yes. Balance, debatable," she muttered, narrowly avoiding another hologram that zipped past her midriff. Hours passed with similar exercises, each more challenging than the last, yet interspersed with Venn's relentless commentary. "Notice how your right calf expresses dissent during evasive maneuvers. I advise negotiation before it escalates." Lyra let out a genuine laugh, her chest vibrating in a way she hadn't felt in months. Humor had crept in again, threading its way through pain, despair, and exhaustion. The synthetic limbs beneath her felt alive, almost cheeky, as if even they were joining in the joke. By evening, the lab lights dimmed, casting long, soft shadows across the platforms. Lyra stood in the center, legs humming in quiet harmony, and looked out at the distant stars through the viewport. She had moved beyond mere recovery. Her balance was steady, her confidence returning like a tide that refused to be denied. Venn appeared beside her, holding 2 steaming mugs. "To continued mobility and mild amusement," he toasted. She took one, long ears flicking, and for the first time she realized that this human, annoying, brilliant, and utterly relentless, had become an unexpected anchor. Together they laughed, watching the galaxy spin silently outside, a reminder that even in the chaos of war and loss, movement, humor, and connection could restore something far greater than legs alone. The observation deck doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the cityscape of Kael Prime bathed in the twin suns' fading light. Lyra stepped forward, her synthetic legs humming in subtle harmony with her nervous anticipation. The surface was firm but unfamiliar, a strange mix of artificial gravity and lingering turbulence from the ship's docking thrusters. She flexed her toes experimentally, feeling the pressure distribute across her new limbs, and took her first careful step outside. Venn hovered just behind her, his expression a mixture of pride and mild terror. "Remember," he said, voice pitched like a nervous coach, "don't trip over the gravity fluctuations. They tend to bite if unprovoked." Lyra's ears twitched. "Gravity fluctuations? Really, Elias? You're inventing challenges now." She advanced one careful step after another, and the ground responded, soft and solid underfoot. Each step was a dialogue, her mind sending commands, her limbs negotiating, and the nanobots humming in obedience. She glanced at Venn, whose eyes were wide enough to host a small star system. "It's manageable," she admitted, a flicker of amusement in her voice. "Barely." The twin suns cast long shadows across the crystalline city towers, reflecting off the polished domes and walkways. Lyra's ears twitched involuntarily, scanning the environment for hazards, both natural and bureaucratic. The low hum of hovering vehicles and the occasional chatter of distant pedestrians created a surreal, almost musical backdrop. She felt alive, yet acutely aware of the precariousness of each stride. Venn jabbed a finger at a stray maintenance bot drifting lazily in her path. Optional obstacle. Consider it a warm-up for any potential interstellar parade mishaps. By mid-deck, she attempted a jog, carefully synchronizing each step with the mechanical precision her legs now allowed. At first, it was a jerky motion, awkward and ungraceful, but slowly, the rhythm began to stabilize. A sudden gust from the city's wind tunnels caught her off guard, sending her lurching sideways. Venn lunged like a panicked human, catching her elbow with a thump. "Steady! Gravity is a fickle mistress, but I can negotiate on your behalf," he said, breathless. Lyra's ears twitched in irritation and amusement. "I don't recall signing up for diplomacy lessons with gravity," she muttered, straightening. They moved through the city in deliberate circles, avoiding hover cars and pedestrians with a combination of precision and trial and error. Each step tested her confidence, each stumble tested her patience, and each laugh shared with Venn stitched a fragile thread of joy back into her wounded spirit. At one point, she misjudged a low-gravity lift platform and toppled into a holographic billboard advertising interstellar cuisine. "Ah, Commander Kael demonstrates the rare art of billboard acrobatics," Venn quipped, helping her upright. She shot him a glare sharp enough to cut through titanium. "Your commentary is lethal," she said, but the corners of her mouth betrayed her amusement. By sunset, Lyra had mastered the basic patterns of walking, jogging, and dodging environmental hazards. Her synthetic legs hummed steadily, their micro-sensors calibrated to the nuances of the planet's gravity. She paused at the highest terrace, overlooking the city streets where light reflected like molten gold off alien architecture. Venn joined her, offering a mug of steaming liquid that smelled suspiciously like coffee mixed with something vaguely medicinal. "To survival, style, and minimal accidental property damage," he toasted. Lyra accepted it, her long ears flicking in reluctant acknowledgement. For the first time in weeks, she felt the full weight of life returning, not just in her body, but in the way she could move through the world again with humor, agency, and a hint of reckless delight. The galaxy outside remained unpredictable and vast, yet each careful step, each laugh, each minor stumble reminded her that recovery was not merely a mechanical process. It was a reclamation of spirit, a dance between alien precision and human chaos, and perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of something far more profound than mobility alone. Lyra stepped onto the deck of her flagship, the familiar hum of the engines vibrating through the floor beneath her newly restored legs. Her blue skin caught the light from the control panels, her long blonde hair loosely braided to avoid floating into her face, and her long ears twitched as she scanned the bridge. Officers paused mid-task, eyes widening, and a few maintenance drones even stopped in midair, their tiny sensors blinking as if unsure whether they were witnessing a miracle or a hallucination. Lyra's stride was steady, confident, though each step carried a faint mechanical hum, a gentle reminder that these legs were more advanced than most starship drives. "Commander Kael," a young lieutenant stammered. We weren't sure you'd." Lyra arched an eyebrow, long ears flicking, and interrupted. Yes, I'm walking. Try not to faint in excitement." The lieutenant coughed awkwardly, straightened, and muttered something about needing to recalibrate their visual sensors. Lyra allowed herself a small smirk. The absurdity of their reaction was mildly entertaining. At her side, Dr. Venn hovered, notepad in hand, eyes sparkling like a human who had just watched a star go supernova. "Remarkable," he whispered, as if her stride might collapse under the weight of their admiration. "I would suggest applause, but I fear your crew might interpret it as a security threat." Lyra flicked a glance at him, ears twitching. "Applause or not, keep your commentary to a minimum unless it involves coffee or minor explosions," she said dryly. Venn raised a finger in mock offense, muttering about his professional integrity as they advanced toward the central command console. The bridge itself was alive with activity, officers coordinating ships, tracking distant fleets, and monitoring sensors that pulsed with alien energy signatures. Lyra took her place at the main control station, flexing her legs experimentally beneath her, feeling the nanomuscles synchronize seamlessly with her neural commands. "Status report," she demanded, her voice carrying the authority she hadn't exercised in months. Officers scrambled, holographic displays flickered, and a star map expanded to fill the viewport, revealing the positions of her fleet scattered across the system. Venn leaned closer, whispering, "I'd advise caution. First impressions can be dramatic." Lyra's ears twitched in amusement. "Dramatic is fine, preferable even. They need to see that I'm alive, functional, and not a cautionary tale of war casualties." Her hands danced across the control interface, running simulations, issuing commands, and feeling the thrill of movement flowing through her once more. The crew watched, tension easing as the feared commander they remembered began to stride with humor-infused authority. At one point, a small drone bumped into the console, sending a scattering of holographic readouts into a minor tizzy. Lyra pivoted smoothly, catching it midair with a flick of her hand. "Control your pets," she said, ears flicking sharply, "or I'll start issuing fines." Venn chuckled beside her, muttering, "She's terrifyingly graceful in a don't-touch-anything sort of way." The crew laughed quietly, the sound blending with the hum of the engines, the blinking consoles, and the occasional bleep of a startled maintenance bot. Hours passed as Lyra reasserted herself, testing the limits of her new legs in quick maneuvers, micro-dashes across the bridge, and even small zero-gravity jumps to demonstrate her restored agility. The holographic training simulations that once intimidated her now served as a proving ground for both precision and comedic spectacle. She dodged lasers, stumbled slightly, and caught herself with exaggerated flair, each movement eliciting both relief and restrained laughter from her officers. By the time the ship's artificial night cycle settled, Lyra stood at the viewport, looking out at her fleet stretched across the void like a constellation of living metal. Venn offered her a mug of steaming liquid that smelled faintly of coffee and something more alien, and she took it, ears flicking in reluctant acknowledgement. "Not bad, human," she said, a trace of warmth in her voice. "You did more than restore legs. You restored confidence, and somehow a sense of ridiculous fun." He grinned, and she allowed herself a quiet laugh, the bridge alive with the hum of life, laughter, and the knowledge that mobility alone could never have returned her spirit so completely. Lyra Kael stood at the edge of the observation platform, the twin suns of Kael Prime dipping low over the horizon, casting long reflections across the crystalline towers of the city below. Her legs, fully integrated and responsive, hummed quietly with the nanotech that had once seemed impossibly foreign, now almost indistinguishable from flesh. Every step she took felt like a conversation with the universe, a dialogue that spoke of recovery, resilience, and the strange comedy of life that refused to be ignored. Venn hovered behind her, notebook closed for once, watching with an expression that balanced pride, awe, and the faintest hint of panic, like any human who had dared to meddle with something that could have gone spectacularly wrong. "You're awfully quiet," he said, voice muffled by the thin air of the high terrace. Lyra flicked her ears toward him, a faint twitch betraying her amusement. "I'm contemplating," she replied, "which is very dangerous when combined with walking, looking at stars, and trusting humans." Venn grinned. "I'll take my chances. Consider it professional hazard insurance." She rolled her eyes but allowed a small smile. The city below buzzed with life, hovercrafts weaving between towers, pedestrians moving with an elegant choreography only a high-gravity metropolis could allow. She had returned to command her fleet, her officers confident in her mobility and leadership once more. Yet it was here, away from the hum of consoles and the artificial gravity of the bridge, that she felt the culmination of her journey. She could move freely, yes, but more importantly, she had learned to embrace the absurdities and unpredictable humor that humans, and life itself, so effortlessly injected into the universe. Venn nudged her gently. "Shall we test your diplomacy skills?" he asked, nodding toward the docking bay where representatives from allied systems were arriving. Lyra's ears twitched, her instincts sharpening, yet there was a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in months. "Very well," she said, voice steady. "But if anyone tries to trip me, I will moonwalk them into submission." Venn laughed, the sound carrying across the terrace. "Noted. I'll include that in the mission briefing." As they descended toward the docking bay, Lyra reflected on the battles, the loss, and the humiliation of being rendered immobile. Her mind replayed flashes of debris fields, the searing heat of plasma weapons, and the strange, ironic comfort of Venn's ridiculous commentary during her recovery. Each moment had shaped her, not only rebuilding her body but tempering her spirit with humility, humor, and a deeper understanding of the fragile, hilarious resilience of life. She had learned that strength was not just measured in speed, agility, or tactical brilliance, but in the ability to laugh, to trust, and to recover when the universe had dealt a cruel hand. The officers saluted as she entered the docking bay, their expressions a mix of awe, relief, and curiosity. She returned the salute with a sly grin. "Commander Kael is back," she announced, "and fully capable of avoiding accidental destruction of property, people, and hovering drones." Mostly, a ripple of laughter spread through the room, tension easing like mist under alien suns. Venn lingered nearby, giving her an exaggerated bow. "She speaks the truth," he said, and a few minor exaggerations for dramatic effect. Lyra flicked her ears at him, mock stern. "Keep exaggerating, human, and I'll assign you to mop duty." By nightfall, the fleet was in order, the Allied representatives reassured, and Lyra found herself once again standing before the viewport, gazing at the swirling tapestry of stars. Venn approached quietly, offering her a cup of warm liquid that smelled of coffee and faintly of the wild herbs he insisted improved brain function. She accepted it, ears flicking in acknowledgement, and sipped slowly. "You've done more than fix my legs," she said softly, voice carrying a rare warmth. "You've reminded me that survival is more than endurance, it's joy, laughter, and connection." Venn's grin widened. "I live to serve, and occasionally make a fool of myself in the process." Lyra tilted her head, long ears twitching as she considered the vastness of space before her. She had faced despair, physical loss, and the cruelty of war. Yet through it all, she had reclaimed her body, her command, and something far more elusive, her spirit. The galaxy remained unpredictable, chaotic, and often dangerous, but she was no longer broken. Each step she took, each laugh shared with a human who defied expectation, reminded her that life was as much about the absurdity of moments as it was about the victories. And as the twin suns set behind distant mountains, Lyra Kael, commander, survivor, and sometimes accidental comedian, felt a quiet, profound sense of completion. The universe stretched endlessly before her, but for the first time in a long while, she was ready to walk it, one perfectly measured, humor-tinged step at a time.